The Gene, An Intimate History by Siddhartha Mukherjee. The Walled Garden. The students of heredity especially understand all of their subject except their subject. They were, I suppose, bred and born in a briar patch and have really exploded without coming to the end of it. That is, they have studied everything but the question of what they are studying. G.K. Chesterton, Eugenics and Other Evils. Ask the plants of the earth, and they will teach you. Job, chapter 12, verse 8. The monastery was originally a nunnery. The monks of St. Augustine's order had once lived, as they often like to grouse, in more lavish circumstances, in the ample rooms of a large stone abbey on the top of a hill in the heart of the medieval city of Brno. Brno in Czech, Brünn in German. The city had grown around them over 4 centuries, cascading down the slopes and then sprawling out over the flat landscape of farms and meadowlands below. But the friars had fallen out of favor with Emperor Joseph II in 1783. The midtown real estate was far too valuable to house them, the emperor had decreed bluntly, and the monks were packed off to a crumbling structure at the bottom of the hill in Old Brno. The ignominy of the relocation compounded by the fact that they had been assigned to live in quarters originally designed for women. The halls had the vague animal smell of damp mortar, and the grounds were overgrown with grass, bramble, and weeds. The only perk of this 14th century building, as cold as a meat house and as bare as a prison, was a rectangular garden with shade trees, stone steps, and a long alley where the monks could walk and think in isolation. The friars made the best of the new accommodations. A library was restored on the 2nd floor. A study room was connected to it and outfitted with pine reading desks, a few lamps, and a growing collection of nearly 10,000 books, including the latest works of natural history, geology, and astronomy. The Augustinians, fortunately, saw no conflict between religion and most science. Indeed, they embraced science as yet another testament of the workings of the divine order in the world. A wine cellar was carved out below, and a modest refectory vaulted above it. One-room cells, with the most rudimentary wooden furniture, housed the inhabitants on the 2nd floor. In October 1843, a young man from Silesia, the son of 2 peasants, joined the abbey. He was a short man with a serious face, myopic, and tending toward portliness. He professed little interest in the spiritual life, but was intellectually curious, good with his hands, and a natural gardener. The monastery provided him with a home and a place to read and learn. He was ordained on August 6, 1847. His given name was Johann, but the friars changed it to Gregor Johann Mendel. For the young priest in training, life at the monastery soon settled into a predictable routine. In 1845, as part of his monastic education, Mendel attended classes in theology, history, and natural sciences at Brno's Theological College. The tumult of 1848, the bloody populist revolutions that swept fiercely through France, Denmark, Germany, and Austria and overturned social, political, and religious orders, largely passed him by, like distant thunder. Nothing about Mendel's early years suggested even the faintest glimmer of the revolutionary scientist who would later emerge. He was disciplined, plodding, deferential, a man of habits among men in habits. His only challenge to authority, it seemed, was his occasional refusal to wear the scholar's cap to class. Admonished by his superiors, he politely complied. In the summer of 1848, Mendel began work as a parish priest in Brno. He was, by all accounts, terrible at the job. Seized by an unconquerable timidity, as the abbot described it, Mendel was tongue-tied in Czech, the language of most parishioners, uninspiring as a priest, and too neurotic to bear the emotional brunt of the work among the poor. Later that year, he schemed a perfect way out. He applied for a job to teach mathematics, natural sciences, and elementary Greek at the Znaim High School. With a helpful nudge from the abbey, Mendel was selected, although there was a catch. Knowing that he had never been trained as a teacher, the school asked Mendel to sit for the formal examination in the natural sciences for high school teachers. In the late spring of 1850, an eager Mendel took the written version of the exam in Brno. He failed, with a particularly abysmal performance in geology. Arid, obscure, and hazy, one reviewer complained of Mendel's writing on the subject. On July the 20th, in the midst of an enervating heat wave in Austria, he travelled from Brno to Vienna to take the oral part of the exam. On August 16th, he appeared before his examiners to be tested in the natural sciences. This time, his performance was even worse, in biology. Asked to describe and classify mammals, he scribbled down an incomplete and absurd system of taxonomy, omitting categories, inventing others, lumping kangaroos with beavers and pigs with elephants. The candidate seems to know nothing about technical terminology, naming all animals in colloquial German and avoiding systematic nomenclature. One of the examiners wrote. Mendel failed again. In August, Mendel returned to Brno with his exam results. The verdict from the examiners had been clear. If Mendel was to be allowed to teach, he needed additional education in the natural sciences. More advanced training than the monastery library or its walled garden could provide. Mendel applied to the University of Vienna to pursue a degree in the natural sciences. The abbey intervened with letters and pleas. Mendel was accepted. In the winter of 1851, Mendel boarded the train to enroll in his classes at the university. It was here that Mendel's problems with biology and biology's problems with Mendel would begin.